argue regularly when discussing it. 35% of couples complain of sleepless nights due to money anxiety. Third, again, 32% of couples, I thought this was horrendous, this statistic. I thought this was awful. Oh, you haven't got it. Just to underline it. 32% of couples lie to their partners about how much is spent on credit cards. When people come to me for money advice, the first thing I do is say, well, let's see the whole situation. And usually plastic bags of stuff are kind of put on my desk in my office, and we leaf through it, unopened letters and stuff like that. We try and build a picture of how much is owing, how much is outstanding. And I've got a special sense. not that kind of special sense, you know, I don't know that. I've got a special sense about when it's not all there. You know, somebody's a little bit cagey. So I say, well, is this everything? You sure this is everything? Because we need the whole picture before we move on. And there's a little kind of frisson in the atmosphere, and I know that they need to talk about something. So I say, I tell you what, I'll make a cup of tea. And I go out to make a cup of tea. And then when I come back in, the atmosphere is quite different. it's red hot. I said, was there anything else? Oh, there was just this, he says. Oh, there was just that, she says. And then we get it all out on paper. Shocking statistic. This is what one of Christians Against Poverty clients said. You start arguing and you just can't stop. You feel the marriage isn't working. To be honest, it's hard to love someone when you're in that much debt. And debt doesn't just happen, and money trouble doesn't just happen because people are profligate. It happens for all sorts of reasons. Here are some of the reasons that it can happen. Some that we don't have control over. They're just circumstances of life that kind of hit us. And unless we're organised in a way before that happens, then we stand much less chance of being able to cope with it. Am I going much too fast? I am, yes. It's my thumping heart that keeps me going at this rate. Okay, I'll try and slow down. Those things can happen to any of us. So best to be prepared, certainly financially in some way, so that should one of those things happen, we have a better preparation for it. And then there's all these things as well. These are just normal things of life. If we don't control money, we'll find that it will control us. Some way, shape or form. If we don't control money, it will control us. One of the other significant things that's happened to me in the 40 years of being involved in finance was I went to a conference and I met two completely bonkers people. And they were John Kirkby and Matt Barlow, Christians Against Poverty. And John and Matt were at this conference. It was a debt conference. And they had this vision. They were about 5 years into this charity that was trying to help people in debt. And they had this vision that they wanted every town, major town and city in the UK to have a CAP centre based in a local church where people could be served with money advice. That's now extended to advice about addictions and advice about jobs. And it was a completely bonkers vision because they had not two pennies to rub together. They're in Bradford, centre of the universe, obviously. And I thought, these people are mad. And yet, God witnessed by His Spirit in my spirit that there was something in this. And so I got to know them, I got involved with them. I've been a trustee for 14 years of CAP now. And one of the things we've done at CAP is develop a money education course called CAP Money. Some of you may have heard of it. And what I want to do is show you a clip now of Matt and Josie talking about, as a couple, how they've come to terms with their differences in organising their money. So this is from the CAP Money course, and this is a DVD mark, and hopefully we're able to make it work. Yeah.
Hi there, welcome to a special kind of section for couples, people who are living together, married, or whatever, on how to take your finances, combine them well, and blend them. So whether you're about to maybe become a couple or you have been together for 20, 30 years, we think we've got some hopefully helpful wisdom and advice to share with you from our experience along the journey. So I think it's fair to say that kind of how you handle money, your attitudes towards it, the way that you are with it, whether you spend, whether you save, it's extremely individual. And it's also, I don't know, it's all very, very personal, quite an emotional thing. I mean, we got together at university, and when we finished university, financially we were a little bit in different positions.
Yeah, so Matt kind of spent a lot of his money. He was very social, went out a lot and spent a lot of money down the pub when he was a student. Whereas I
As students do.
As students do, yeah. Whereas I kind of had waitressing jobs in between and kind of tried to save up a bit of money and things like that. So when we ended university, Matt was in a very different financial position than I was in. So he kind of had student loans and had debts and things, whereas I'd managed to kind of save and I had a car. So when we got married, we kind of brought very different things into the equation when we got married. And you obviously have to try not to take that into the relationship and blame each other and kind of hold that against each other and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you can imagine, like, so I'm bringing debt into the relationship, Joseph's bringing a car, not any old car, it was a Fiat Uno. To not feel judged in that situation, I have to say that I didn't feel judged, although I probably judged myself a bit. And instantly, when you get into this whole section of looking at kind of what you bring into a relationship, or how you handle your money in a relationship, the whole area of guilt and maybe a bit of judgment, I could have and should have handled my money better. I should have had cap money students running in my university, which it wasn't back then. And I should also have learned to be a bit more content with what I actually had, rather than borrowing a load of money to have a good time.
Yeah, so it's really important that you talk about money, because it is just can be such a cause for arguments and blame and guilt, and can be the cause of a lot of distress in relationships, can't it?
I think so. I mean, this is why, I mean, we've now worked for CAP for 13 and a half, 14 years, and consistently we have heard and seen it causing relationship breakdown. I mean, why is it so difficult to talk about money for couples?
Well, because especially if you're handling things separately and one person is handling it really well and the other person isn't handling it that well, then obviously you feel bad for that, and people, a lot of people can't admit that the debt they've actually got and the debts they've built up, and so that causes problems.
So building your budget together, if you've done that on your own and you haven't done it as a couple, then I'd really encourage you to go back and do it again. Because as soon as you get onto the kind of the nitty-gritty of where you might be able to cut out and cut back, cut cost, or whatever it is, that's where the rubber hits the road, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
you've got choices to make.
We've got friends with very different priorities, haven't we?
Yeah, so obviously for him, he really likes his sports Sky package, because that's really important to him, whereas she would prefer to spend more money on going out for meals and treats and things like that. So they obviously have to balance those things up. But to agree it in the budget beforehand is just a really important conversation to have, isn't it?
Yeah, and there can be some things that can make this especially difficult. I mean, particularly if maybe one of you's got a more expensive hobby than the other person, or something. You know, or maybe kind of one of you feels a call to maybe go back into education and the impact that's going to have on your budget. All of these things, they need to be kind of really talked through, but done in such an atmosphere of grace for one another. I think that is kind of the key word over this whole thing. Trying to understand where each other are coming from and not judging one another.
There's lots of different ways you can manage that too. So you can have both your incomes coming into the regular payments pot before it all gets divided out, or you can have separate bank accounts.
Yeah, really. I mean, we merge all our finances, don't we? So there is no Matt's money and Joseph's money. But we also know there are a lot of people with very kind of successful relationships who actually, you have literally your own separate bank account, and maybe you have one regular payments account that you put a bit of money into each to cover direct debit standing orders, or even some people make it even a bit more complicated, such as I'll take the gas and you take the electricity, I'll take the council tax and you take the phone bill, and then you're going around turning the gas up and the electricity down. As much merging as you can possibly do is better. But it's simpler, definitely. But the whole thing around saving and spending, that is an issue, because obviously we've kind of just been teaching everybody kind of take a bunch of cash out each week. And it's like, if I'm a spender and you're a saver, you don't want me to leave the house with all that cash in my pocket, do you? particularly on personal stuff, not just maybe food and that, but kind of personal. And your brother and sister have worked a great system for years, haven't they?
Yeah, so they have a separate pot for spending, so they were allocated a certain amount of money for, you know, just personal spending stuff, so CDs, downloads, things like that, that they will spend on different stuff. My brother is totally a saver, and he managed to save up for a computer, I think, out of his personal fund, which Joe had just spent on, you know, body shop products and stuff.
But that's a different approach, and that just brings a little bit of extra freedom, kind of where you perhaps do have a different approach to it. Now, the important thing with this is continually talking about it, constant communication, especially as you go through the process of getting the Cap Money system set up. Like, almost set a weekly time where you're going to sit down and say, right, how do we do this week? How do we do next week? And don't expect it to blend perfectly straight away, because it will be in that first week that you discover that, yeah, one of you does go off and spend too much money, and then you've got no money left for, I don't know, to pay for the kids' lunches or whatever it may be. So as you go through the first steps of getting your Cap Money system set up, I just really encourage you to actually stop and talk about it, talk about your experience. Let it be full of grace, no judgment on one another, but in working together, you can work your way through it to get like a decent kind of, I guess, bit of financial teamwork together, so that you can start thinking about planning for the future. And obviously planning for the future, and that is an important part of discussing your expectations, really, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's so many things happen in life that are quite big things, but obviously have financial implications, like planning for children. Obviously that's going to take a massive hit to your finances, and you've got to plan that in and decide when you can start doing things like that. Or going on a big holiday, maybe. Do you want to go on a really big holiday, or do you need to buy a car? And weighing those things up is really important together, isn't it? And prioritising which things you're going to save for.
Absolutely. I guess the main thing that we'd just really want to say, and I hope you've heard it loud and clear, this is about honesty, it's about grace, and it's about communication with one another. You know, this Cap Money system, which kind of we run as a couple, have done for years now since we got introduced to it. And to be honest, even before Cap, we had a budget, didn't we, that we lived to, and we checked every single month to see how we'd done in terms of what we'd spent and compared to what we had coming in. And it has just meant that for us, our money and our finances, it just hasn't really been an issue. And so I'd really, really encourage you to work this system, to keep it in place as one of the kind of the foundation stones of a really successful relationship. And if you can work this out, if you can work out your finances together, you can work out pretty much anything, I'd say. So take our advice, work the Cap Money system, communicate well, be gracious with one another, and let your finances just be a really kind of healthy part of your relationship as you continue into the rest of your lives.
My husband and I handle our finances slightly differently. I'd definitely say I'm the saver of the two of us, so I might like to save up my pocket money and do something bigger with it maybe, whereas he likes getting his pocket money on a weekly basis and just going out and having a curry with his mates. So that's, yeah, just a different way of doing it, but we really value having money that we can do whatever we want with.
I think the best thing about Cap Money for me was it enables me and my wife to sit down together and work on our finances as a couple, rather than having very different ideas about the way money should be spent, the direction we should go in the future needs department. So when we're planning ahead for something that might happen in the future, we've got a good idea, we can come it together and work within the confines of a set budget.
So was that helpful? Yeah? Very good. Matt's the Chief Executive of Cap now, and yeah, they're a wonderful couple. Did you spot that they had different attitudes to money that they brought into their marriage? Yes, you couldn't fail to spot that, can you? There are many issues about working with money as couples, and one of the handouts I've given to you, which I don't want you to go through now, but maybe take away and have a look at together at some stage, is couples combining your finances. I think this is a key issue of getting us talking about money together and combining our money and making decisions together. And there are lots of little issues in this handout that you can take away and have a look at. But one thing I do want you to look at now is your different attitudes to money, your different sort of personalities in relation to money. Matt was a spender, Josie was a saver. I wonder whether you're a saver or a spender. I wonder what differences there are between each of you in your relationship. So the money personality test, we're going to do this now. We're going to do it as a couple, and you've got one between you. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take each of the questions and mark yourselves individually with a pen as to whether you're an A, a B, a C or a D for each of those questions. And just work through these questions together and maybe agree with the answers that you've given. And I'll call us back to order in a while. We may not get to the end, but it may highlight some of the differences there are between us in terms of our money. So about 10 minutes, I think. So for you, I think maybe just talking about differences. Number one. Okay, keep doing it. At the end of the questionnaire, have a look at some of the results. You're going to tot up whether you're mostly A's, mostly B's, mostly C's or mostly D's. And these are the descriptions at the end. Those who are mostly A's in answers to the questions, you're a definite hoarder. Okay? You could say a saver. Sounds better, doesn't it? Mostly B, thrifty but not obsessive. You're a smart spender. Oh, that sounds good. I quite like to be a B. C, you're a tightrope walker, treading a fine line between what you can and can't afford. Okay? D, you're a debt collector's dream. You really have no idea about your finances. I hope you don't end up there. If you do, as we said this morning, God is able, whether we are unable. So don't be depressed. Okay, I hope a helpful exercise. As I say, finish it off in your own time. But from Matt and Josie's little talk, what can we summarise from that? Nothing, says the PowerPoint. It's useless. It's completely useless. Mark, can you do it for me? It's frozen. Okay. The summaries that I've got from it are these. Communication, absolutely key, isn't it? Well, that's all right. Communication is absolutely key. Openness with each other about our finances, and honesty as well. I think are three keys from what we've just done and from what we've just talked about. Okay, that's great. All right, so if we've got to the point where we have been open about our money and we understand where each other comes from, it comes to the point where we need to be organising ourselves a little bit. And so organising our money is quite key. And it's true, I've said it already, if you don't control money, money will control us. Proverbs 21:5 says, if you plan carefully, you'll have plenty. But if you act too quickly, you'll never have enough. And I think this is true as well. If you sow disorganisation and indiscipline in your finances, you will be likely to reap debt, worry, and family friction. And there's one tool that can help us in this whole exercise. One tool. Anybody know what it is? Anybody know? It's a budget. It's a budget. It's a simple thing as a budget. I'm not going to ask, I used to ask people in settings like this, how many people have a budget? But it made me cry, so I'm not going to do that. And it embarrassed most of the room. I'm going to show you a simple way of budgeting. I've given you another sheet for you to work at after the event. It's from red to black. This is Stewardship Services. Some great materials from this. This is a budget challenge, taking a look at our personal finances. I want you to turn to the back. And I'm just going to go through the sorts of different aspects of creating a budget. And hopefully that'll be helpful. So have you all got the back of this sheet? Yeah? Step one is just knowing what's coming into the family budget. And that's amazing too, because again, in a context like this, I can ask the question, how many people know the net amount that comes into their bank accounts each month? And frighteningly, a lot of people don't know. They know it kind of works out, but they're not quite sure about the exact details. Was it 20,000 or 2,000? They've just no clue about it at all. So step one is making sure that we know all the money that's coming in to our budget, because that's the money that we're going to steward, that we're going to do our best with over the coming month. And if you're paid weekly, people will do this on a weekly basis. And if you're paid monthly, people will think monthly in terms of this. Okay, so what are the priorities for our money after it's come into our account? Well, the priorities are those things where we're going to either lose our house or somebody's going to take action against us in some way. So housing costs and utilities, or we're going to lose a service. So they're the most important things. So we just itemise those things first. They're sort of priority for us. So they get first call on our money. Yeah? And so we've done that. List all those things out and total that column. Then we've got the other important items. It's important that we are communicable, so increasingly important these days that we have a telephone, and multiple telephones it seems. And then there'll be other things. There'll be like HP payments, TV license and stuff like that. We convert all those into monthly. There's a way of doing that that's described in the previous pages. And so that's really kind of just to keep us living where we're living and things coming in and being able to communicate. So that's step 2. Step 3. Step 4, on the right-hand side, is our everyday expenditure. And this takes a bit of work, it takes a bit of... Sometimes people will keep a note of what they spend their money on. And over a month or a couple of months, just to see what their everyday expenditure is like. Because if I start the week with £10 in my pocket, chances are it won't be there at the end of the week, but ask me where it went, I may or may not know. And that's very true. I had a man come to see me who was quite heavily in debt, and I got him to do this, and just to keep a note of his expenditure. And when we got to looking at what he'd found out about himself, he spent £20 a week on Mars bars. And leave him alone, you'll have your own. Give me 10 minutes with you over lunch, and oh. He didn't smoke, all right? Mars, £20 a week on Mars bars. I said, did you know that you spent £20 a week on Mars bars? He said, no. I like a Mars bar, he said, but I didn't realise I spent that much. But he was a working man, so he went to work and took his lunch and tea time. He had a Mars bar because to give himself a bit more energy. And lunchtime, he finished off his lunch with a Mars bar. And, in the afternoon, after multiple cups of tea with sugar, he needed obviously a top up with a Mars bar. And then on the way home, just to tidy himself along so that he actually reached the meal table, he would have a Mars bar. £20 a week. I said, do you want to spend £20 a week on Mars bars? He said, no! And so it's only because he discovered that that's what was happening that he could make a qualitative choice about, am I a Mars bar freak or am I not? And he decided not, fortunately. Just keeping a track of our everyday spending can be really, really helpful and eye-opening too. But then we fill in those outgoings on a monthly or weekly basis in step 4. And then we've got other expenditure, which are things like those that are listed there. Things like, I don't know if it's like this with you, Christmas comes along, and you think, oh, Christmas, I'll go to my Christmas savings account and that will pay for Christmas. What a wonderful thing. How many of us have got Christmas savings accounts? No, that's the point, isn't it? So what you do with that column, how much do you spend on Christmas? Do you know the average spend on Christmas in the UK per individual? I can't believe this, but it's £863. Yeah, I couldn't believe this. Makes my £3. £863. Yeah. Take the costs that you would spend on these larger items, divide it by 12 so that it becomes a monthly amount, and write it into the budget like we're putting it to one side so that when the event happens, the money's there in advance. And if you add all those things up together, that's your total spending, both present spending for now and immediate spending in the near future for bills as they crop up, things like TV licenses or whatever. And that tells you where you are in terms of incomings and outgoings. There may be money left over, in which case you can make choices about what happens with that other money. It may be that it doesn't quite balance out that way, and you've got to make decisions about what we're doing with that.